All right, there's something about peak experiences where once you have them once or twice or for a little while, you're able to reconnect to how you felt during those moments later in life, even if you're not on that substance or whatever anymore. In this video, let's talk about shrooms because it's one instance of this. I haven't taken shrooms in a long time, but back when I took them twice, shrooms. I It's like I was enlightened for a week or something, and the cool thing is not just that week, it's that I was able to reconnect to how I felt during that week, even until now, even though I haven't taken them for a long time, because I know what that other side feels like. And it's not just shrooms. Like the first time I actually experienced this phenomenon was when I was prescribed Prozac for my depression many years ago. For my depression and anxiety, yeah. Eventually they took me off of Prozac because they realized I had bipolar. It was like kicking me into overdrive. But when I started taking Prozac, like I was really anxious, and being on Prozac made me able to do all sorts of things because despite how I was feeling, like my mood was high enough. Like it's amazing how impactful your mood is. So I was going about doing things I had never done. Yeah, being agentic in a way that I'd never been before on Prozac. So that when I quit it cold turkey, I knew, even though the anxiety was all back for a while, but then later on I was able to completely beat my anxiety because I had seen the other side, what I'm capable of, right? And I was talking to a girl way back then who had the same experience on cocaine. I mean, cocaine, yes, it destroyed her health and shit, but when it comes to anxiety, she was telling me the exact same thing that I was feeling on my Prozac, that it let her see the other side, because when she was feeling that good, she was able to get past her anxiety, right? So that when she got off of cocaine, then in regular life, she knows what she's capable of, right? So that's just Prozac. Shrooms are the same thing. Alcohol to an extent. Like these days when I go out socializing at bars or whatever, I don't need alcohol, to be honest, because I know what it feels like, what that me having experiences like being present, what that feels like. I know what that feels like, so I don't need alcohol anymore to experience that. But having had those experiences on alcohol for a stretch of my life let me know what that other side is like, so I can reconnect to that without the alcohol, right? So on shrooms, what did shrooms do for me back then? It was with probably two of the worst roommates you can possibly have. Like this, one of these guys was just doing cocaine, doing all sorts of hard drugs and shit. I would walk into his room and he would have like 20 beers by his bed, just going to work hammered and shit. Just very interesting time in my life. Just maybe for a few weeks I was living with these two guys, and I did shrooms with them. And the amazing thing was that he held a very positive kind of space for me, because you don't want to be having an experience like that and have it be negative. You don't want to be around a negative vibe, because then that gives you a bad trip, right? But he was able to make the space really positive, good music and stuff, and I had so many realizations. First of all, the presence, like the way for the next week it just shut off all, what I call it, indexical thought, like pointing, the signs, right? Language. I was able to think without language. So for the next week, everything was so visually present, that I was able to think without thinking, think without using language. And so the biggest payoff for me was the level of assertiveness I experienced was like nothing ever before. Like back when I was in prison, I was seeing guys who were able to mouth off, like just really give the shit to somebody, like just put them in their place, right? And I had never been able to do that. To say how you're feeling in the moment, or what you expect, what you demand, your best, assert your boundaries, whatever it is. But I realized, like after I took shrooms, that once the language, that thought shuts off, you can be assertive as fuck, because your own self is not included in anything you're saying. Nothing is self-referential. Nothing comes back to you. Like if I tell you to fuck off, right? And I'm not thinking, there's no language, nothing going on, there's no language going on in my head, then I'm not thinking at all about my own status in relation to this situation, whatever, or any kind of threats to myself. Nothing. It's not, I don't even entertain those thoughts. It never crosses my mind, because all I'm thinking about is the experience, what it demands from me. All I'm thinking about is you, right? My attention is completely outward focused, so I am not my own enemy anymore, right? And that allows me to be assertive as fuck. Like, and I experienced this at work. I had a couple of run-ins like that where I really mouthed off at two people who I thought were just acting like shitheads, right? And these guys were both bigger than me, tougher than me, whatever. And I was able to put them in their place. And this was like that kind of power I'd never experienced before. That was incredible, right? And then, of course, the thing about these experiences is that, or any kind of epiphanies you have, any kind of unlocks, any kind of level ups in life, I've always realized there's always a higher level to it. Like there are always levels to this game. So whatever epiphany I had back then, like the understanding I have now is like, it qualifies that in so many ways. So now I know that I can still have indexical thoughts. I can still think with language, and I can achieve the presence in another way. But I'm just harking back to like the unlock was for me back then. So that was one of them, the kind of presence I unlocked, how everything was so visually present that it shut off all linguistic thinking for a little bit. And how that made me so much more assertive, made me realize how people are able to be that assertive, to be able to mouth off, because they don't have any thoughts inflected back at them, right? So they're able to do what the situation demands. What else? So the other thing was this understanding around PTSD, because the music that this guy started playing while we were having the trip, he started putting on emo music, and it was, and we were getting happy as fuck off of emo music, and that made me realize it's very interesting having these experiences after you've studied psychology, because then you start thinking, okay, wow, this is what that shit was applying to, right? So how do we treat PTSD patients with drugs and stuff? It's like we let them experience that same negative trauma to some extent, some version of it, in a with positive valence attached to it rather than negative. So like when they're on MDMA or something, in a pleasant way, re-experience a little bit of that trauma, right? And what that does is it teaches your brain that this experience is not so negative after all. I guess it attaches a positive valence to it. So what were we doing on shrooms, playing that emo music? And emo music talks about the most fucked up shit that can happen to humans, right? And this emo music is kind of celebrating it, is having fun around it. Made me realize that this phenomenon that I'm experiencing, what me and my roommate we're doing right now, experiencing these negative things, we're talking about all these negative things that happen to us, while just laughing like hysterically to it, just being really happy about it, enjoying ourselves, while talking about all the trauma that has happened to us, is the same thing that we're doing culturally with emo music. We're celebrating, enjoying, kind of covering these traumatic things to re-experience them in a positive light, so that they no longer have that negative hold on us. So that was another kind of epiphany I had back then during that shrooms trip. Another one was letting loose, really connecting to the experience. That's, I guess, would be the third epiphany. Because this guy, he will not let me sit still. He's like, you have to move according to how you're feeling the music we're playing right now, right? And back then I wasn't able to make use of this lesson. I was still stifled as fuck. But it's amazing. Like yesterday, I had a dance class. I wouldn't say it's the first dance class I've ever had, but first in a long time, and in a setting where I'm not used to. It's very uncomfortable for me to walk into that dance class with all those hot girls and everything, right? All those cool people. But I went yesterday. It was an amazing experience, and how it's kind of mind-blowing to me how I was able to handle a situation that would have just completely destroyed me with anxiety before, because I was able to stay connected to the experience of the music, experience of the moment, without being in my head at all. And now that I think about it, it's like I was kind of reconnecting to that lesson that I learned during that shrooms trip so long ago, to connect to the experience and not how I'm supposed to act, not how I'm supposed to feel, but what I'm actually feeling. When I listen to music, how do I actually feel? When I'm around these people, how do I actually feel? And it goes beyond this too. Like even in socializing, recently I've unlocked a kind of presence that I can bring to any kind of social interaction, where I let the experience animate me. Like whatever expression wants to crawl across my face, I just let it. I don't try to micromanage that anymore, and it lets me able to smile or like just be a very pleasant person in the moment, because I'm not micromanaging. But it requires a kind of trust, because when you're anxious, you feel you have to micromanage all these things. Like there was a time I couldn't even walk outside unless there was like a building next to me. Had agoraphobia, because I was trying to micromanage my walking. I couldn't even walk if somebody was behind me, like shit like that. I wouldn't be able to walk outside the house, right? Because I was micromanaging every little movement. That's what you do when you have anxiety. And it also was with my facial expressions, with everything. I'll talk about this in more depth in future videos, I guess. The depths of my anxiety, what I beat. But just in terms of like social interactions these days, I can reconnect to that lesson that I let the experience animate me, let it draw forth the emotion that needs to be expressed, let it display the emotion that needs to be expressed on my face. I don't try to micromanage it anymore. And that just, yeah. So like, I guess these 3 epiphanies, I didn't even realize there were 3 until I started making this video. I had wanted to make this video way back then, like maybe this was a year ago or something, when I had those trips. So yeah, the power of peak experiences. You don't need to keep having them, but have them a couple of times, you know, just so you know what that other side feels like, so then you can bring that lesson home into your more quotidian life, your regular everyday life.